Welcome to the It Crowd podcast, where technology leaders converge with the boardroom elite. In this digital hub, the pulse of cybersecurity, mobility, managed services, and networking comes alive. Here, innovators and decision makers unite, forging a dynamic dialogue for tomorrow's success. So whether you're a tech aficionado or a C-suite strategist, this is your platform. Join hosts Richard Rodriguez and Josh Lowrey as they bridge these worlds, curating insights and fostering a collaborative dialogue. The It Crowd podcast is proudly brought to you by the following sponsors. ClearSync Solutions, unifying your technology solutions with simplicity. From M&A integration to global connectivity, cybersecurity to managed services, we're your comprehensive partner aligning your business goals with technology for energy, oil and gas, and financial service firms. Trust our proven track record. ClearSync Solutions. One ClearSync, countless possibilities. eCentire, the authority in managed detection and response, protects the critical data and applications of our customers from the known and unknown cyber threats by providing exposure management, managed detection and response, as well as incident response services designed to build your organization's cyber resilience and prevent business disruptions. By combining open XDR platform technology, 24/7 threat hunting, and proven security operation leadership, eCentire's award-winning MDR services and team of experts help organizations anticipate, withstand, and recover from cyber attacks. Evolve IP. Evolve IP is the only provider that can start with a single remote hybrid workforce solution and grow the account into a multi-solution contract. Evolve IP delivers integrated work anywhere technologies that enable IT departments to do more with less by getting them out of the PC, BBX, and VPN business. By leveraging our underlying providers, Microsoft, Cisco, VMware, and Citrix, Evolve IP offers services in 4 categories: Microsoft Teams direct routing, virtual desktop, virtual servers, disaster recovery, backup as a service, and O365 Azure, contract centers, customer experience, leveraging data as a service, and any CCaaS provider without a VPN or corporate-owned PC. Put us up against any standalone Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, VDI-Data as a Service, VCAS, or CCaaS vendor. You'll find that Evolve IP offers the best support, fully optimized solutions, and the ability to consistently grow the account so you can make more money.
Welcome to the It Crowd. My name is Josh Lowrey. I am joined, as usual, the co-host extraordinaire, Mr. Richard Rodriguez. How are you, Richard?
Doing great, Josh. How are you?
You know, Richard, I'm doing great. Those of our listeners that are following us on our social media channels are probably looking at us from a different point of view. This is a new studio that we're in today.
Exciting moves.
Yes.
A lot of things for Upright Digital and for all the podcast network.
Yeah,
actually.
That's right. The It Crowd is now coming to you live from the urban offices in the West Heights location in Heights. This is actually the first podcast that we're doing with cameras in the new studio.
Correct.
So we're going to have a guest. We're going to bring you on in a minute. We're going to keep you in suspense for just 1 minute, but really just going to brag about ourselves for a couple minutes on this podcast. Unfortunately, this might be the only guy that we've ever had on the podcast that has a better office than we do.
It is amazing.
Yeah,
we went there.
I forgot about that.
It really is.
It's kind of hard to brag about ourselves when his is a lot cooler than ours. Yeah. I guess on that note, because I don't really want to go any further, we have today the founder and CEO of Corva, Mr. Ryan Dawson. How are you, sir?
Thank you. No problem.
So typically we spend 2 to 20 minutes bragging about ourselves before we let our guests come on, and we just keep you guys in suspense. But as soon as I started to brag about this new studio, I have actually been to your offices. They are incredible.
Thank you. Thanks.
How did you, you guys are in the Cannon over on the west side of town.
Yes.
And I mean, for those that have never been there, I don't know how many square feet the office is, but it's straight back 2 stories. Looks like you're walking into the future downstairs.
That's the point.
Yeah. It is. What was your vision when you said, let's build this?
Well, when we built it, there was a different vision, but recently we've sort of like taken inspiration from the mycelium network. Essentially, it's like how all plants connect and talk to each other. And we sort of like have likened that to data and how does that work in our business as well. But generally, I want everyone, and including myself, to work in an environment that's like amazing and you feel inspired every day when you walk into the office. And I wish I had an unlimited budget. Unfortunately, I don't. But we're partway there.
Well, it is inspiring. And what do you guys call that downstairs area with all the, I don't want to say cage, but the
I don't know.
because right when you walk in the lower level, it's kind of like that's where everybody's working 24/7, right?
Yeah, we call that our ops center.
Center? Yeah, it's
our fusion team.
so if you ever get the chance, I'm going to basically invite the audience over to come see you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
But you need to go see the Corva offices on Brittmore at the Cannon building. It's really one of the cooler offices you're ever going to go see. They've got their ops centers on 24/7. So even at night, there's people working, and we'll get into why they're working 24/7 here in a minute. But yeah, you guys have just done a remarkable job. The reason that we've been there is Richard and I were lucky enough to do CorvaCon for you guys. What is CorvaCon?
CorvaCon is our annual event where essentially we bring out all of our partners and we bring out everyone in the industry that we can to have a conversation around what's the future of oil and gas and digital.
And how they meld together?
Yeah, and if you ask anyone that knows me, it's also like, look, this has got to be a great time and essentially a party as well. So
And it was a good time. It was very informative, during the day. The panels were second to none. I was lucky enough to be invited on one, which was fun. We did podcasts there, and that entire day was amazing. But yeah, afterwards, everybody let loose and had a good time. It was really fun.
Hopefully you'll run into maybe a magician here. You'll have some crazy ice cream stand or something over there. And then paired with that is hopefully the best technology talks that are cutting edge.
I don't know if I've been to anything like that in the oil field yet. I really don't. I felt like it felt very Silicon Valley-ish in Houston. So I think, if you're trying to accomplish that, that's where it was going. Just a smart event. We interviewed, is it your CTO, Jeff Jensen?
Yes, correct.
So Richard and I are obviously very young people. We're not going to tell our age, but we're young and handsome, no big deal. And we did some pre-work with Jeff to get ready for him. And he's a very smart guy, Texas A&M grad. And as soon as you begin the conversation, it's clear that this guy knows what's going on. So he starts talking and we're like, okay, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. He's asking us some questions. And then he says, okay, well, back in the oil field in your guys' days. And I said, Jeff, I go, you are very close to getting your podcast canceled. I said, how old do you think we are? I said, this is not acceptable. I said, don't you refer to us as old people? He's like, no, I'm not saying that. So we hung up the phone. I said, this guy, who is this guy? He's too smart for us. And he actually came on. He was brilliant. He was a really sharp guy. The way he explained some of the things, one of the things he said on the podcast was just about generative AI. And it was just so smart that I made him repeat it. And I've played that for guests multiple times because I just think he and you guys, for that matter, are just spot on some of the changes that are happening. And I personally don't think that our industry is paying enough attention to it yet. So
yeah, Jeff's amazing. I recently went with him a few weeks ago to Norway. I get there, he speaks Norwegian fluently. We fly through Germany. He speaks German fluently to the airport and everything. And then we land in Spain to meet our engineering team, and he speaks Spanish. And among that, he knows French, of course, English. And I said, but you don't know Ukrainian, which is what a lot of our developers speak. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn that. But he doesn't learn it using Duolingo. There's some other secret method he has
for him. Well, why don't you tell us what Corva is, how you came up with it, who are you? Give us some scope on you.
I'm Ryan Dawson, the founder of CEO of Corva. Corva is the modern digital platform for oil and gas. What we're trying to do is take data and use it to optimize the performance of all of the assets in the life cycle of upstream and midstream and maybe someday downstream and maybe someday outside of that. But we think that data has the ability to change how we work and how we view the future and how we eventually make money. So Corva is it's not just one thing, but it's this idea that it can be anything. But the grounding element is it's all about data. So as long as we can record it from the machines and the people and all the processes happening, we then have the ability to improve it. So you measure it, you can improve it. More specifically, yes, we are, very into drilling around the world. Currently, like one of the biggest focus we do is automating drilling rigs in terms of like the actual, how basically empowering computer to drill the entire well. And, hopefully soon that'll be in fracking. And, but there's tons of things that we do. So it's hard to put a nice bow on it, but in general, it's all about data. That's everything it's about.
How'd you come up with the idea?
So before this, I was not in oil and gas, and we can come back or talk about this. I grew up in Midland, but I never was going to be in the oil and gas business. But
you're a Midland guy?
Yeah.
I honestly, when you said Norway, I thought you were Norwegian.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it takes one to know one, right? But yeah. So before this, I had a startup in Austin, and you look at oil and gas 10 years ago, and Corva's about 10 years ago. There was a lot of dysfunction, and it still exists today. The industry is gigantic, right? So you see this dysfunction, and you're like, okay, we can get in here and maybe we can make a dent. Like if we do anything, at least we will spur the industry to be better. And I will say like that goal has 100% been accomplished. Like I think we have raised the level of everyone in the industry and, biggest companies there are to do better and think better and say, hey, maybe the user experience can be better. And maybe, the products I use can be better. When we started, I feel like people were using like desktop applications that looked like gray, all gray and like a million buttons on them. And now when I look out there, a lot of stuff looks like Corva. So, that's something to be proud of. But the next evolution of that, and like the reason I started Corva originally is like, we're in an automated drilling rig. And it turns out like, it's very complex and that's a hard thing. But we have we've actually started to achieve that and through with our partners. So it's, of course a rig, for example, is a huge manufacturing facility.
Do you want to share some of those partners' names? And we talked about them on air. I mean, do you want to share who you're working with? You're working with some pretty big names.
Yeah. So Neighbors Industries,
right?
I mean, they're our biggest partner in the drilling side, and they're an amazing partner to work with. But there's many more that make this possible.
Right. Yeah, we actually interviewed one of the Neighbors guys, and I was really impressed that Neighbors, their desire to find something new and to really implement some of these new technologies. And it sounded like they were working, and they're finding new efficiencies. You mentioned data a couple times. One of the phrases, I don't know if that's the right word, that was used repeatedly at CorvaCon was data in, data out, right? You guys have to clean up and make sure that you're getting good data. How are you working with your partners like that to make sure you're getting what you need in all the processes that you're working on? Because I imagine it's not as clean as you would like it to come in.
Well, the success of Corva has been our attention and investment in gathering all the data and making sure it's correct. So what everyone sees on the output is maybe a pretty graph or an easy way to look at something. All the hard work is in the data infrastructure, essentially what we would call the plumbing that brings the data into the system and allows you to do calculations or just visualize it. And so that's the hardest part, but you never see that. I don't know that we give much credit for it either, and that's fine. But so we're bringing data from all these sources. They always have to be right. So if you take like a drilling assembly, there's all these components, how they're measured. And if one of those, measurements is off and that's on the official form, well, all the calculations that we are running or doing, they don't work, right? So like you have to catch that, you have to fix that. And so when we talk about our Fusion or 24/7 ops team, like that's their main responsibility, is gathering all this data from all these sources and making sure it's perfect all the time. And so you can imagine that's a really hard job. But that's like that we can't do anything unless we get that right.
Yeah. For those that don't know, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, the Corva is almost like the app store for like Apple's app store, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if you have a technology, you would load it onto Corva's app store, and then people, I don't want to say download, but they more or less would go work with you, subscribe to. Explain that to the audience before I totally botch with your company.
Yeah, so I think if you deliver a platform or a product to a customer, they get some value out of it. Let's call it 1x. But if you're able to customize it and build to your workflows and exactly what you need, they get a different value out of it. I'm going to call it like 2x to 10x more. And so the idea is, if we can deliver our platform and then offer the really easy way to customize and build exactly what you want on top of that, I think that's the holy grail. And so we built the infrastructure to allow that. Now, we also use that same stuff for our own needs. And so we can develop and build apps quickly. And in our business, and anyone that's in software, or well, I should say all businesses, the key is speed. And it's doing great work at speed. And that tooling is extremely important to that goal.
That tooling being the app, what does that mean?
Yeah, being able to develop apps or deliver software quickly. So I go back, I make changes, and I can deploy them. Now, here's why that's important. I can make changes to just this little widget or app here, and I don't have to worry about it causing problems to other apps. Now, the problem is, like, let's say I make a simple website. If I change one part of it, I have to redeploy the whole website, and I could break something. So it's essentially this concept of isolation. I changed one thing in isolation of the other variables.
Okay.
So I think one of the great things about Corva is, as you're at the forefront of pushing this transformation really in the industry, right? Because so many, there was data coming from, sources, whether it's IoT sources, things on the rigs they were kind of going in, they were sitting in the, data lakes, for example, but they weren't getting processed, right? But then there was also this whole other subset of data that people were still using manual logs. They were doing these kinds of things, but because you're able to now process this in real time, you're actually helping to transform the industry to to get out of those old ways of doing things. How do you deal with those? Because I'm sure there's customers you deal with that pace of change doesn't necessarily match what they want, what Corva can give them, into where they are kind of in their technology cycle, right? So how do you kind of overcome that, convince them, help them along that journey?
Well, personally, that's my, I feel like that's my job. Like, I tell people a lot, I don't want to retire and there's self-driving cars and there's robots walking around and, everyone's doing all of this other stuff by hand. Not only do I think that that's not a great thing for the business, I just think it would be cool if, like, we had automated rigs and automated frac fleets, and like field development was essentially an AI is telling us exactly how to do that. So every single day we get pushback along those lines. Why would I change what I'm doing? I like this. The answer is I'm going to keep walking through a brick wall until it happens. I don't know what to say. I mean, a lot of people resist change. There's no way around that. It's just that I always want to ground myself in what is the future and what's going to happen. And when I hear dissonance to that, or I hear like, that's not, I don't think that's the future, I just have to continually like tell myself what's actually going to happen. More practically, yes. Like, okay, let's say like, so we have a large company, and there's other people that can like work through those smaller like management of change issues, right? So like I kind of get out of the way in that point and like say, okay, let's like work this slower. Let's, bring people on at a slower pace. But I think in general, yeah, like no one wants to change.
Do you feel like that's the same way today as it was 10 years ago?
Yeah, it's because I'm pushing like harder concepts. It's like 10 years ago, it's like, how about we just log into a website to see a report? That was, it seemed like that was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Now it's like, how about we automate the equipment? So
that just no matter what change, it's a brick wall of change.
Yeah, because we have so far to go,
man.
I mean,
that's almost discouraging to hear that. Really, I mean, I want to believe that with each wall that you're walking through, that they're like, okay, this is the right way, and you're just saying it's just tougher and tougher.
I think one thing people have tried to adopt this mentality that let's not tell people that the computer is going to take their job. Let's try to like dance around the issue. The reality to me is if you look at all these complex systems, complex equipment, what people really want is consistency, and then they care about like the actual like hydrocarbons. I think everything else insofar as that is just a construct that was created. And those things just further themselves. They make themselves, they want to make themselves valuable in their own right, as opposed to the end goal. And I think like there should be a change of people basically saying, well, maybe we need computers to take over a lot of this. And I know like people don't want to hear that, but like if you really want to do this and you want to get to the next level, that's what's required.
Like, one of the impressive things being at CorvaCon and around, just the brilliant people that you have with you, that culture of innovation obviously comes from you. You have a vision for Corva. You started the company. You continue to have this vision pushing forward. How do you your leadership style of getting that innovative spirit into everybody throughout the company? How do you translate that and get that your message across? Because as you said, you got developers around the world that you deal with, not only at the office, but guys in Ukraine you were talking about earlier. How do you get that message across?
Well, first of all, it starts with the people. You have to have the absolute best people at the company. And it's a continuous battle. And you're always hiring and you're always out there trying to find the best people. If you don't have the best people, this is not possible. We can't get to the end goal. And so like what I eventually want to do is I want to be, my goal is, the goals always change. You always hit the goals, there's new goals. But every day I want to show up and I want to be working around the best people, because they're going to like raise your bar. They're going to make you keep developing and growing. And I think that is like that's an ultimate success, independent of any product goal. But so like, let's say you do have the best people. I think with the one thing I'm really big on autonomous trust. So I want people that I trust and I like, but then I want them to essentially, the best people just wake up and know what to do. They just go. We don't have to have meetings. We don't have endless status checks, because the thing is, I trust you.
I had this conversation this morning. I really did. I mean, it's who has time to go back and tell everybody every day, you have things you need to be working on.
Well, if you do spend that time, it turns out you're much slower.
You can't. Yeah, you can't climb with someone hating on you.
Exactly.
Yes. So sorry, you're right, because you hit a nerve. Like that is. I mean, honestly, I don't want to pump you up too much, but I mean, you're firing me up. You are. I feel, man, please forgive my butt kissing here, but I just feel like there's some Elon Musk vibes coming from you, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I just feel like there's big vision out there. We were talking in the lobby earlier about, the Bill Gates books. I know which ones you're talking about. I had a friend of mine, actually, you probably even know who he is. He worked with Microsoft for a couple of years, and he said Bill Gates sat in on a meeting with him for like 2 hours. And he goes, I've never had a meeting where the vision was so far out, and you could just tell that that's where Bill Gates lives at all times. He's not living in, what's wrong with my tire on my car, right? It's like, we are going this way 10, 20 years out in the road in front of us. And I think to get where you're talking about going, you're probably looking years down the road trying to help your people climb through these walls that you've already broken through, these bricks mentally years ago, I would imagine. So
yeah, the trick though is if you're too far out there, well, things will change, or you won't even like do the first steps right to get there. So that's the trick, is like, how do you actually develop something useful now that can parlay into the future? And I think that's the thing you don't want to avoid, is you go into a basement for 5 years and you come out with a product, because what you end up with is something the market doesn't want, they don't need. Did everything change? We're all geothermal now. Just kidding. But like that. So
let me ask you that. How is Corva stacking up to that assessment right there?
We are very grounded in like, okay, you can only go off to work and develop on things for so long before you actually have to deploy that for customers and real data and like get validation on that. So it's all about iterations. So in feedback loops. And if we're the only ones doing the feedback loops, that's not the right thing. So it has to be running on like customers' equipment. You have to make sure that those use cases are valid. And yeah, I mean, we are far from perfect, but
right. Yeah, and I don't have any data point to ask that question. I'm just wondering, because look, I have my own company. Richard has his own company. We are all subject to wanting to be better. But that is the standard, right? Of not getting, you want to be moving forward, but at the same time, like it has to work good or work well today. But you have a big operation. How big is Corva right now?
I think maybe 300 people.
That's a lot of people.
That being said, I do not think the future is a lot more people. There was one time where I thought having a prestigious company was a lot of people. I actually don't believe that anymore. I believe that, like, yes, you do need some amount of people, a large, amount, maybe in the hundreds. But beyond that, if you add people to a project, you actually just move slower. It's harder to communicate. It's harder to like trust people. And so like, I think like maybe the world's changing there, but I've definitely changed, which is we just need better people in those same positions potentially. And so like, if you have the best 300 people, I don't know, do you need to be much bigger? And
good one.
And so that's kind of where I am, is like, let's be efficient, but let's just have like the best people.
So when you look at that, I mean, let's just say that, put in the field that Corva is in, let's just say the skill set is kind of the baseline. That's table stakes, right? What are the intangibles that you look for when you bring people on, personality wise or things like that?
My next one is high agency. So essentially like, if left to your own devices, if like you're in a foreign prison, like, can you get out?
That's great. Awesome. That is a great interview question. I'm going to load that one in. What could you get me out of prison if I was there?
All right. And then besides that, I just, in general, I want to work with people I like. And would you go have a drink with them? But truly, seriously, would you? I think people always feel like, oh, we have pressure to fill this role, or we like need this person or something. So let's just do it anyways. I'm totally against that now.
Right. You'd rather have the seat open than put the wrong person on the bus.
100%.
That's a very it's there going. That's a big gap too. That's pretty funny. Oh man, you got me on that one, Ryan.
So when they break out of the foreign prison,
let's go celebrate.
Go have a drink.
Yeah, let's go celebrate. Oh man. Well, I've got some actual questions here, but you had me on this one. What do I want to know about Corva? The innovation aspect of it's clear. The vision aspect of it's clear. When we were there, we saw people just breaking off into, little work cubes, if you will, 3 to 5 people at these tables all over the place. We saw them because we actually did some setup beforehand. So I see how your people collaborate and meet internally. How do they collaborate externally with clients? I mean, how do you encourage partnerships, and how are you selling? Like, what are you going to talk to the market, and what kind of partners are you looking for externally?
So one thing that I never talk about, or maybe I do, I'm very customer focused. So like, I think the idea that the customer is always right is generally the principle. Like whatever the customer needs is like generally the thing. Being customer focused at all times is, a huge part of any business. But I'm always there to make sure that's on target. Like at a point, we have basically a chat system that you can come in and talk to any of our like 24/7 engineers. And at one point, the response time used to be like minutes. And so I implemented a foghorn that essentially would go off if like it wasn't responded to in 30 seconds. And now I think the average response day and night, 365 days a year is like under 12 seconds
for
like every request.
Wow.
And so you could come in and ask the most complex question or the simplest thing, like I have a data issue, and then you get that. So in that line of spirit, we're always trying to innovate in how we work. Now, I think, again, this goes back to when you drop balls, I think it points to what's your weakest link. And, you always have to be evaluating that and looking at that. But all customers are different. They're like the Anna Karenina story. They're all unhappy in their own ways. But that's totally a skill. And how do you work with customers? I think where I would like to be more so is not that we sell a product, but like we're more solution oriented. So like, we're your partner. How do we achieve your outcome? And how do we be on the same team with that? In oil and gas, the vibe is usually, how do we squeeze the vendor? And that's a zero-sum game. I want to be in an infinite sum game, right? Or, positive sum.
Right. That just tells me you're dealing with a lot of E&Ps.
How can we be on the same team?
Yes, well,
because people...
I can tell you, to answer real quick, one of the things, because Richard and I are more from capital equipment manufacturing, frac world. We talked, again, getting ready for this interview. I would say that Rich and I are oilfield service guys and capital equipment. The way I've always perceived Corva has been dealing with the E&Ps and then now drilling contractors. Until I went to your CorvaCon, I talked to one of your guys and he mentioned a wellhead company in Oklahoma. And because of my steel business, I was able to say, are you talking about, and I said the company, and the look on his face was, and I nailed it. And because very few people would know that type of company in this type of city in Oklahoma. And I said, you guys can actually help a company like that? Because it's not one of the majors and it's not a huge deal. And he said, yes. And here's how we're doing it. And he showed me. And I thought to myself, well, if you can help people like that, then with all respect to you and the Corva company here, then why aren't you doing more? And he says, well, this is where we're going. And so there's a long story to get where I'm going. I think that to not, you're looking for the full stream of it all. Does Corva have more, because you mentioned frac a minute ago, but again, I don't really put you guys in the world of frac yet. Does Corva have plans to kind of expand beyond E&P, come into frac, come into capital equipment, and kind of become this ecosystem for the entire oil and gas world? And maybe I am saying yes. Are you nodding yes to that?
Yes. So we're quite involved in frac. Maybe that's an education. No.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So we have maybe 100 frac fleets in the United States and like some other conventional plays that we monitor every day. And part of that data, we're getting all of the frac stream, all of the wireline data, all of the pump down data. And then in some cases, a lot of like offset wells as well, just monitoring pressure.
Working with the oilfield service companies.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'd say like we have we are just as much in frac as drilling to most people. A lot of operators we only work with for frac. So the data problems in frac are, if you talk to a lot of people, they seem much harder. And when we arrived, there was nothing there.
I would say so. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a long way to go, but yeah, I think we have a great product there.
Well, I will encourage you to keep going there, because I do think that the oilfield services of the world, at least the one I'm thinking of, and maybe we can talk off air, could use a lot of what Corva does. And I don't know if they are picturing Corva as an option yet. And actually when we left CorvaCon last time, I kept telling everybody at your company, I said, I'm the best salesman you guys have. Thank you. And I mean that because I went around going, why is nobody paying attention to this? Because I just, again, with all respect to what you guys are doing in the world of frac, I don't see it. And I don't know where you guys are placing those 200 frac jobs or whatnot. And again, that's not to say you're not doing it. Of course you are. There's just, that honestly tells me how big the market is and what available market that is for Corva to kind of go out there and really get into the oilfield services in the frac world and all the coil tubing units, et cetera, to really kind of get take the data, help these companies. They need a lot of help. They really do.
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge problem. It's a huge orchestration problem. We're also working on conventional completions, and we're even doing interventions work. Like we're in the early stages of that, and we do drill outs as well. I think the hardest part is, it's a big problem for us. Is like how to become more known in these different regards. My background is not sales. So probably like the one thing like Corva is more of like a grassroots movement as opposed to conferences. We were at ERTEC this year. I walk around there. But I don't know that conferences are the future. I'm not sure that they were the past either. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, look, I think this podcast, and I'm not just saying that because you're on our podcast, but I mean, I think these are trusted names. Richard's been in the business a long time. Richard's had success in both private equity and building. Same with myself. And we're manufacturers. We're in that world. And I started a company called Daniel Energy Partners, and we had one of the largest conferences out there. And we do that because we wanted to bring people to the table to bring good ideas. We recognize, quite honestly, like you, that there was a lot of brick walls to run through, and we need people with ideas and passion to say, hey, Mr. Senior guy that's been there 30 years, you need to stop for a minute and pay attention to this. Like the old way of doing things isn't going to work. Or it has worked. It's not going to always work, I should say, because, it's not a way of, there is no, always and nevers are tricky words, right? You don't want to say things like that, but there's just a lot of new things that are working now. And I think your guy, Jeff, does a tremendous job of telling the story in a very technical and cool way and saying, yep, that exists, but watch what we can do now. And I mean, I really found him to be just like this interview. So no, I feel like there's a lot of really cool synergies that you guys can start to tell the industry. So I'm glad you came on this pod. We're not going anywhere yet. I'm just like mid interview, just realizing that there's a lot of opportunity to get people in our world to pay attention to this. So that's my mid interview diatribe.
One of the looking at the innovation, you have a hackathon coming up. What's that about? Is that your first? I think you've had one before. Kind of what came out of it? The last time. What's kind of spurring it on to continue that process? And let's tell the audience about that.
Yeah, sure. So the hackathon is a yearly event that we do in the summer. I believe this year it's July 11th and 12th. What happens is a lot of our customers send development teams or someone representing the company with an idea to develop. And so these could be like frac or drilling contractors. They can be most of them are large operators. And what they do is in this one day hackathon, they develop some idea that they've had to improve their operations. And typically, when it started, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, not many people finished in that time period. But I think last year, all 15 teams comprised of over 80 or 5 people developed and completed the application in the window and presented it. And what's amazing about that is like when you sit through and watch all the presentations, they're quite amazing use cases of like how they can really improve their operations. And after that, they go back into their company, and through the next year, they sort of work on that and develop it and integrate it. And I've seen, it's just amazing progress, and it just shows the power of like using 24 hours to dedicate to this concept of like a hackathon. Even internal to Corva, we run sort of the same concept at times. So we'll take a whole team and we'll say, you have 2 days to work on any problems that you think are interesting. And 2 days we're going to break and we're going to like look at everything and like say, okay, are any of these worth following down? And like, should we change our roadmap and like, go after these? And so I think it's like a great principle that like you can just run at your own company or you can come to ours too.
It's interesting because you're not dictating the ideas, so the diversity of the ideas that come in there it's got to be pretty wide ranging.
Yeah, and this year I think could be interesting. I'm potentially thinking about. I want someone else to do it, but I'm thinking about entering a team of just me, where I use basically an AI to generate the code in the application, just as like a proof of concept that like I can come in with just an idea now and use an AI to essentially generate all the code and make it running. I hope someone else does that, but I think that like we're on the precipice of that now.
Oh,
you
are.
You just present your idea. You can even present some visuals if you have what it should look like, and it can generate all the code. And like we even can give it all of our documentation of our what's called our APIs, like how you talk to Corva, and like it can actually work. And so I'm like hoping some teams do that this year, but like that is going to be a really that's going to be a real thing soon.
So on that note, AI, Richard gets mad at me because I tell people that we do AI, and that's because we have Copilot in Microsoft. So I do AI, no big deal. He's like, stop telling people that. So, but I just keep telling people. You guys are actually doing generative AI. Can you kind of elaborate more on that, and where do you see it go? Where are you now? Where do you see it going? What does that look like to you guys in the future?
Yeah, so generative AI or large language models, as they call them, or just AI, I don't know, what word we'll converge on. LLMs are the future, I think, of most industries, because you're talking about an ability to consume a very, very large amount of data and do really interesting things with it. So the problem with traditional machine learning, if you've heard that term, is that the more data you fed it, or the more use cases, actually it would like it past a certain point, and the point was not far, it would actually like the performance of that system would degrade. And so they call this like, the idea is like, as a human, the more examples I give you, I assume you'll get better, and there's not an upper limit to that. But that was the problem with machine learning. I'm not saying like there haven't been some ways around it, but like LLMs or large language models, on the other side, it turns out the more data you give it, the better it is. And like that matches with like what we assume reality will be. And so when we talk about companies and the amount of data they have, this is like a huge opportunity. And so like if you just look at Corva, and we capture all this data around like geo, drilling, completions, production now. We're capturing all this stuff, all the reports, everything that's going on. The potential is quite large, because if you look at the majority of people that use Corva or use any of these systems, 95% plus, at any one time, they just want an answer to a question. They do not want to go through the minutia and all the BS or whatever that there is. They just like, they have a question like, hey, which of the rigs and all my fleet is like, has the best directional drilling performance and why? Okay. Like, so the AI now has the capability to answer that and potentially show you a graph or show you a visual with that. And so, yeah, I mean, you can definitely believe that like that's one of my biggest focus areas right now.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, back to CorvaCon, the concept was that if you're not doing something at your company today, within 12 months, you're going to be left behind. You believe that is the case for most companies out there?
Well, it's hard to say. Like, yeah, just this. I don't know how companies will evolve in the future. Like these really large companies that it seems to be like a lot of people are pushing paper or like doing these processes. Like, I don't know. Like, so the arguments that I've heard is like, if you have LLMs or you have large language, you have AI in these companies, you actually become more competitive. You do more, but still like the competition is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you talk about like two large oil companies, like they'll both presumably implement AI and they'll both presumably get more competitive. So like you wouldn't like let go of people. You would maybe just retask them on other things. I just don't know what there will be. It seems like in large companies, there's a lot of like, not, there's a lot of duplication of work. And so like, hopefully it can fix that and then free people to like work on better things. It's hard to know like how that will change. It's also hard to know like, will there be some like, interim revolt because like the technology changes so quickly.
Yeah, the pace of it, the pace of it is interesting because you can talk to some people and they've got the viewpoint that it's actually going too slow, and you've got the other side of the coin where, oh my God, everything has to slow down, right? And so finding that happy medium, and in your case, it varies from customer to customer, right? And again, that journey that they're on, you're the one that kind of has to help mediate that and provide the tools kind of at their pace, right? And I'm sure that gets frustrating at times because they could be doing so much more in many cases.
Yeah, I will say the AI tooling or the tools that are out there are not what I think are in a state where you can really use them in your job. But I believe just because I work with them every day, I see every development across the entire, like all industries, that it is very close. And it is like, if you just look at like Twitter and like you see what's coming out every single day in all of these domains and applications, it's like the speed is crazy. And so like you just have to extrapolate and you have to say, okay, well, something great is going to happen.
On that note, what do you think is the biggest investment opportunity in tech, in oil and gas in the next decade?
In tech or in oil and gas?
Well, I put in tech and for the oil and gas, excuse me.
Corva.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Yeah. No, I'm not. When you walk around, I walk around.
Is investment in Corva possible?
Maybe so. Yeah.
Because we invest.
Get out your check.
Yeah, we invest over here. That's just FYI. But keep going.
I walk around Tech, and there's so many companies that I feel like are just one leg away from death.
Yeah. Man, listen, we went to a party last night and I asked for an Urtech party. I kind of asked people, how was it? And this consensus was, it wasn't what it was. And I'm like, well, I know what it was. And if it wasn't what it was, then what is it? And so that's going on this week.
Yeah. It's just like people have to find something inspiring and work on that and like build for the future. If like everyone's or a lot of people are like just focused on like the past and the way it was. And I don't know. I like seems boring if anything else.
I mean, Richard, this guy's not messing around. Like he is looking to the future. You better be looking to the future.
Well, I think, another way to say it is, like you said, one leg away from death. It's everybody, you can walk around that show and people are still trying to, not even come up with a better mousetrap. They're just trying to improve upon the same thing that they've been doing for the last 40 years rather than looking at something completely new. And that's where you are, and that's where you're pushing the envelope. And again, to what you said earlier, if you don't get on that train soon, like your company will die. Innovate or die.
To be honest with you. Yeah.
Some people have latched onto this idea that, we're going to go support geothermal drilling. That's the future. I'm like, okay, great. Like, let's look at how many rigs are out there doing geothermal. Okay, maybe it's going to grow, but like, look, there's this huge industry here. How about what can we do to make this one really great? What can we make this one the future?
Yeah.
And that has been the opportunity of Corva in general, is like, we have this neglected industry that's stagnant in terms of technology. And we've come in and said like, well, what if the best people in Houston and other cities like that we can find can work on this instead of going to work at Google or, Apple?
Can we keep them? Can we get them here?
Yeah. And I think people are passionate about that. So many people have come back to Corva from other industries and they're like, I actually like this industry. The other one I went to was kind of boring, or I didn't like this about it. And like, I'm actually quite passionate. Like, let's kill it. Let's do this.
Are you seeing more people, younger people willing to come work at Corva today than years past?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Outstanding.
I mean, that's very good for the industry.
Yeah,
because especially in the last, call it 5 years, you did see kind of a talent drain because people just looked at oil and gas as something they didn't want to be in. They didn't see a future in it. And again, Josh and I talk about this all the time, is other people put their impressions, whether it's, whatever politicians or whatever, they put their impressions of what oil and gas is. And that's not the true reality. When you're in it, it is an innovative industry, and there are opportunities for people, and there are opportunities like Corva where you can go in so many different directions and take that to the next level. And we have to be that megaphone for the industry because nobody else is.
I feel the same way today that I did the first time we talked to you guys. I don't know another company like Corva out there. I really don't. And I'm not just saying that because you're 3 feet from me. I like what you guys are doing. I think that more people should hear about it. And I don't know what that means to the average oilfield service, capital equipment company. Obviously there's a lot of money in the E&P space, so they can throw dollars at it and test some stuff. I feel like the, average Joe out there needs to know what Corva's doing, because I feel like there's a lot of success for that person in 5, 10, 20 years if they latch onto that today. And that's the part that gets me really excited about what you guys are doing. So because I feel like you guys are going to touch a lot of different, parts of the industry. I really
Thank you. Yeah.
So we're going to let you get out of here in just a minute. You've started other companies. You've been an entrepreneur your entire career. What advice do you have for people that want to start a business, or what would you tell yourself, your 20 years ago self that you've learned and lessons learned today?
I mean, I'd love to answer that question, but there are so many amazing people out there with way more successful. I mean, Brian Chesky at Airbnb, he's phenomenal. And so just in general, I don't know. Thanks for the opportunity, but I just think there are so many, amazing people.
Well, unfortunately, that's not an answer we're going to accept. What do you think that you learned over those 20 years of entrepreneurship? By the way, I appreciate the fact that you are going into the world of the Airbnbs of the world, like that those are big people to aspire to. I just think your vision for big is big, and I appreciate that. So, you got to give the audience something. Okay.
I think people have to be authentic to themselves. I think there's this misconception that you must conform to something out there, some way you see it. If you walk around and you see people wearing a suit, but that's not you. I think you have to be authentic to yourself, because no one will be you. And if you are not yourself, then that's like a missed opportunity in the world. And what if that's what the world needs? And probably it does.
What a great answer. What a great answer. See, this is why you come on this hard-hitting podcast, because we don't accept no answers. We need that second answer. That was a great answer, by the way. Thank you for that. By the way, that is, the world doesn't hear that enough. They're just, we're being told to do something and be something else. So great answer. Is there anything else you want to tell? What's the website so people can go check you guys out?
Corva.ai.
Corva.ai. Okay. Is there anything else that we
got the hackathon coming up?
Yeah.
Yeah. And CorvaCon's in maybe October. So come to both of those.
I highly recommend CorvaCon. I mean, I'm inviting myself already and other people, but if you can get a ticket to it, it's really worth going. It's a unique thing that I think the industry needs more of. So that's in the hackathon. What is that? July 11th and 12th?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Ryan Dawson, thank you for your time today.
For your time.
Thank you coming out. Richard, is there anything we need to tell people about going into the summer months here?
So going into the summer, you're going to see some best of episodes from us.
Okay.
While Josh takes his summer sabbatical. But we'll come back. We will be back soon with some more new episodes. Check us out on our social media site. Check out our YouTube channel, anywhere you consume your podcasts. And thanks again for everything.
Yeah. All right. Enjoy your summer, everybody. Thank you.
The It Crowd podcast is proudly brought to you by the following sponsors.
Upright Digital. Upright Digital specializes in partnering with your business to maximize marketing efficiencies. We have a deep understanding of people, their needs, motivations, behaviors, as well as the technologies that enable brands in many industries to utilize what is available in a changing digital landscape. Find us online at uprightdigital.com.
ClearSync Solutions, unifying your technology solutions with simplicity. From M&A integration to global connectivity, cybersecurity to managed services. We're your comprehensive partner, aligning your business goals with technology for energy, oil and gas, and financial service firms. Trust our proven track record. ClearSync Solutions. One ClearSync, countless possibilities.